fakultas, Universitas Gadjah Mada menjadi pelopor perguruan tinggi nasional berkelas dunia yang unggul dan inovatif. Fakultas Teknik Universitas Gadjah Mada adalah merupakan salah satu fakultas dari 18 fakultas yang dimiliki oleh Universitas Gadjah Mada. Fakultas Teknik merupakan salah satu fakultas terbesar di Universitas Gadjah Mada. Saat ini, Fakultas Teknik memiliki 8 departemen, diantaranya adalah 1. Departemen Teknik Arsitektur dan Perencanaan, 2. Departemen Teknik Elektro dan Teknologi Informasi, 3. Departemen Teknik Nuklir dan Teknik Fisika, 4. Departemen Teknik Geodesi, 5. Departemen Teknik Geologi, 6. Departemen Teknik Kimia, 7. Departemen Teknik Mesin dan Industri, 8. Departemen Teknik Sipil dan Lingkungan. Fakultas Teknik UGM memiliki visi menjadi lembaga pendidikan tinggi teknik berkelas dunia yang unggul dan bermartabat, berperan aktif dalam pengembangan, penerapan ilmu pengetahuan dan teknik, serta berintegritas tinggi, berbudaya, dan berasaskan Pancasila. Misi: menyelenggarakan pendidikan untuk menghasilkan manusia beretika dan mumpuni di bidang ilmu pengetahuan dan teknik yang berdaya guna dan mengabdi untuk kepentingan bangsa dan kemanusiaan. Mengembangkan, menyebarluaskan, dan melestarikan ilmu pengetahuan dan teknik untuk kepentingan bangsa dan kemanusiaan. Menumbuhkan dan mengembangkan kreativitas dan melaksanakan pengabdian kepada masyarakat yang berlandaskan budaya bangsa. Mengembangkan kerjasama yang luas dengan lembaga di dalam dan di luar negeri. Dengan jumlah mahasiswa sekitar 8.500 dan didukung 380 tenaga pendidik dan tenaga kependidikan sebanyak 398, merupakan fakultas yang besar dengan tanggung jawab memberikan pelayanan yang baik, handal, inovatif, efisien, dan ramah kepada seluruh pengguna layanan dalam membangun zona integritas menuju wilayah bebas korupsi dan wilayah birokrasi bersih melayani. Dengan terbitnya keputusan Rektor UGM nomor 916-P-1-P-Garis-Pukor-2021
The Honorable Dean of the Faculty of Engineering, the Honorable Panelists, Moderator, and Sponsors, all honored Vice Dean, all faculty members, head of departments, and all guests and participants. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Universitas Gadjah Mada, and welcome to the webinar entitled Innovation in Higher Education to Prepare Engineers in the VUCA World. It's an honor to have you all for today's event. This webinar is conducted in accordance with the celebration of the 76th anniversary of the Faculty of Engineering Universitas Gadjah Mada. My name is Deni Kusumawati, and I'm honored to be the Master of Ceremony for this webinar. To open today's event, ladies and gentlemen, let us listen to the national anthem of Indonesia Raya and Hymn Gadjah Mada. All participants remain seated. and gentlemen, this event will be officially opened with the welcoming remarks by the head of Organizing Committee of Hari Pendidikan Tinggi Teknik 76. Please welcome Bapak alias Awidita, PhD. Time is yours.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone who has been so kind for joining us in this event. I'd like to extend my gratitude for the availability and the participation of the distinguished speakers. First, I'd like to extend my gratitude to the Dean of the Faculty of Engineering, Professor Selo, for the continuous support throughout the event. And also gratitude to Professor Sahir, who has been so kind for allocating his time joining us during this event. I'm sure it might be the moment in which the current pandemic has instead enabled us to joining all together in this event without having to worry too much about the distance or technological barriers. I also would like to extend my gratitude to Pak Habibi as the representative from the Institute of Engineers Indonesia, PII. Sorry if I couldn't recall the name precisely or correctly. Also, I would like to extend my gratitude to Ibu Suryani Eka Wijaya from the Regional Development Agency of West Nusa Tenggara. Welcome, Bu Suryani. I will not provide any further or lengthen my speech. As I previously mentioned, I extend my gratitude, and I also would like to reiterate that this event is part of a series of events. So we already had several, I guess, friendly competitions within the college, as well as some other events, meaning to further augment our sense of solidarity, sense of collaboration between and within Civitas Academica in the Faculty of Engineering. I hope that throughout this event, we could learn from one to another, in particular related to the theme of the webinar, which is the innovation in higher education to prepare engineers in the VUCA world. I guess for most of the participants are curious about what the VUCA word refers to, and I will let the participants to get to know more about that term from the distinguished speakers. With that, I'd like to conclude my speech. And again, thank you everyone for attending this event. I hope you would have a productive afternoon and that we can learn from one to another. Thank you again. Have a good and productive webinar. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Pak Alias. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to enter the main agenda. And today's agenda will be led by Dr. Yani Rahmawati from the Department of Architecture and Planning, Universitas Gadjah Mada. Please welcome our moderator, Dr. Yani.
Thank you, Ibu Deni. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In this pleasant moment, I am utterly honored to be virtually surrounded by inspiring panelists to discuss a big issue that we are facing currently, especially in the field of engineering. The title, Innovation in Higher Education to Prepare Engineers in the VUCA World, is inspired by the ongoing pandemic that keeps challenging everyone to make the right decision under volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, so-called VUCA environment. VUCA is actually a popular term in business. More than a decade ago, we witnessed the establishment of Uber and Airbnb, an innovation that forced aspect in business to change to survive. Nowadays, we also witness the changes and growth of business in accordance to adapt to the ongoing pandemic. So how do we build innovation in the engineering field as well as in higher education to survive in VUCA world? It is a great opportunity that we have 4 distinguished panelists today. We have Professor I.R. Selo Sulistyo, PhD, Dean Faculty of Engineering, Universitas Gadjah Mada. We also have Professor I.R. Dr. Muhammad Sahir Liu, Deputy Vice Chancellor of Research, Innovation and Commercialization, University Technology Petronas, Malaysia. We also have I.R. Habibi Razak. He is the Executive Director, the Institution of Engineers Indonesia. Last but not least, we also have Ibu Suryani Eka Wijaya, PhD, or we call her Dr. Eka. She is planner in Regional Development Planning Agency, Bapeda, West Nusa Tenggara, Indonesia. Without further ado, let us welcome a beautiful lady from a beautiful island, West Nusa Tenggara, to start the session. Good afternoon, Dr. Eka. Can you hear my voice? Ibu Eka, good afternoon.
Yes, thank you, Bu Yatni. Good afternoon.
So how is the preparation for MotoGP Mandalika 2022, Ibu Eka?
Oh, yes. I just finished with the practice yesterday for the preparations. Inshallah, will be the event will be next month in March.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I would like to introduce Ibu Suryani or Dr. Eka. Dr. Eka is an alumnus of Universitas Gadjah Mada. She obtained her bachelor's degree in civil engineering. She is also an alumnus of the University of Technology Sydney and Massey University. She has interest in and specializes in urban transport policy and planning. Dr. Eka will present a topic entitled Developing Local Government Initiatives to Overcome Challenges in the VUCA Environment. Dr. Eka, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
It's a great honor for me to be able to join this important webinar. And I really like the topic, innovation in higher education to prepare engineers in the VUCA world. This is a very interesting topic, actually. Please let me start my presentations. Yes, the title is about the Developing Local Government Initiative to Overcome Challenge in the VUCA environment. Next. We all know what is VUCA, V for volatility, U for uncertainty, and then C for complexity, and A for ambiguity. Next. If we look at the statistic, the ranks, countries with the most engineering graduates, Indonesia is not left behind. Actually, we produce more than 100,000 graduates. This data is from 2015 from the World Economic Forum. Next. And then if we look at the Indonesian Infrastructure Development Index, not really making us happy actually, because we started back in the 2015, it started with the rank 62 and now around 33. Next. We have many challenges, especially with the climate change. For example, the construction and operation of buildings are responsible for 38% of global emissions, and there is an urgent need for solution to help accelerate decarbonization of the urban built environment to limit the global temperature rise to below 1.5 degrees Celsius. So this is the big challenge for engineers, especially the how the engineers can develop the urban built environment so that we can contribute to the climate change solution. Next. Perspective in managing infrastructure services delivery at the local level or regional level, especially in the midst of a Fuka world is the first one is lack of quality and quantity infrastructure has been hampering Indonesia's economic and social development. We all know that infrastructure has a very important role to achieve all the economic, social, political, as well as environmental goals, especially related to sustainable development goals as well. And then second, we also have challenge in terms of building the infrastructure. First is related with the land acquisitions, mostly happening in Indonesia. And then financial resources for infrastructure investment is quite limited. And also our areas from Aceh to Papua, we are considered as a disaster-prone areas with the earthquakes, tsunami, floods, and other types of areas. And now we also, in the last 2 years with COVID as a non-disaster, as a part of the global pandemic, which also require us to think outside of the box. And then in terms of the infrastructure, the public-private partnerships funding scheme has not been optimized at the local government level. And there's many reasons for not taking into consideration for using the public-private partnerships. Next. The challenge in realizing the local government initiative to overcome challenge in a VUCA world, first is because of the lack of innovations and technology. And then we also have like infrastructure, limited development funding, regulation also limited, which make our movement is quite difficult at this time. Next. Here, for example, I live in Lombok. I work for the local government here. Back in 2018, on August 5th, a destructive earthquake with a magnitude of 6.9 struck Lombok Island, and over 80% of infrastructure were damaged or destroyed. 564 were killed and more than 1,000 were injured, while also more than 417 people were displaced. Yes, and it was such a unexpected at that time, while we were thinking that we are doing really good in terms of the economy with tourism industries start to growing, but then because of the earthquake, and then we suddenly have problems with the basic infrastructure for the local community. But luckily, the President Jokowi has undertaken the instruction to get the recovery process for the impact of the earthquake in Lombok. Next. So what will be the practical approach to mitigate the dynamic surrounding of VUCA worlds? Well, I'm thinking here that we need to improving the human resource development, because we need to have people with a sound knowledge who can think about the innovations, effectivity, and efficiency in undertaking all the works and activities, and then optimizing the use of technology, improving the quality of infrastructure development. For example, now we know that our area is like a earthquake-prone area, so therefore the infrastructure development need to consider the buildings that are resistant to the earthquakes, and then creating more innovation that will help us to move forward and achieve the sustainable development goals. Next. Yes, this is Lombok Island tourism infrastructure development. We have the specific economic zone, we call it Mandalika, and this is part of the master plan where we have the international circuit, Mandalika International Circuit for international event such as MotoGP. And then last year in November 2021, we had the World Superbike, and it was quite successful. Many people attended the events, and also part of the key tourism infrastructure development are built in this particular area. So it's in the southern part of Lombok. Next. In terms of the role of higher education in supporting local government initiative, I can think of the importance of facilitating engineering graduates to understand how the government, funding mechanism, policy, and management work. This is very important because the engineering students, it's not only having the knowledge about the technical or engineering subject, but also about the governance and government policy, especially if they would like to turn into a real world contribution. And then the second point, strengthening the importance of society and its values to engineering graduates for better understanding the beneficiaries of infrastructure development. This is very, very important because the engineers, especially the newly recent engineering graduates, they need to know what they are building the infrastructure for. They need to consider also that not all people have the same capability, so they also need to consider the disabled and the vulnerable groups of the society in the community. Focusing on teaching ethics for engineering graduates to reduce corruptions, this is very important, and also enhancing tacit knowledge of engineering graduates to complement their explicit knowledge about the socio-political realities of countries and cities. For example, my background with my research in urban transport with bus rapid transit, I can see that, for example, the engineer need to design the bus station not to put a very high fence, for example, so that all age can use the stations. So that's part of the understanding about the needs of the society that engineers that the engineering graduate have to fully comprehend. Next. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Dr. Eka, for the presentation. Moving forward, let us welcome the second presenter, Bapak IR Habibi Razak from the Institution of Engineer or PII Indonesia. Pak Habibi Razak is replacing IR Dr. Danis, who currently having sort of like emergency. So, Pak Habibi, can you hear my voice?
Yes, sure. Can hear Ibu.
Okay. So before Pak Habibi start his presentation, I would like to introduce his biography a little bit. So IR Habibi Razak is the Executive Director of the Institution of Engineers in Indonesia, and he is also Indonesia Country Director for SMEC International. So Pak Habibi Razak obtained his bachelor degree in civil engineering from Hasanuddin University. He also obtained his magister in management from University of Kansas, USA in 2013. Pak Habibi, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you Ibu Yani as the moderator. Thank you everyone. Thank you distinguished speakers. We have Insinyur Prof. Sahir, Prof. Selo, dan Ibu Dr. Suryani Eka ya, and all the participants who are attending this event. It's actually really a great event. So can you all hear my voice clearly?
Yes, Pak Habibi.
Okay, thank you. So may I share my slides? So that would be good if I can share my slides. Yeah. Okay. Ibu, saya share sendiri ya.
Boleh,
okay,
sila.
Ya. Okay, thank you. Deeply apologize also from the Institution of Engineers Indonesia, PII, that Pak Danis is not able to make it this afternoon due to emergency situation, which is inevitable. Therefore, he asked me to assume his responsibility for today's presentation, speaking on behalf of the Institution of Engineers Indonesia, speaking on behalf of the President of PII. Okay, let us start with the topic. Today is the innovation in higher education to prepare engineers in VUCA world. Having said that, we were given the title, a topic by Ibu Dr. Yani, Managing in a VUCA world, a case study of managing national challenges. Of course, from the perspective of engineers, the Institution of Engineers Indonesia. Okay, this is the outline that we are going to present this afternoon. So first we start with the definition of VUCA, then skills required in VUCA era, the assignment of managerial competence to VUCA. So what sort of competences we need to deal with, we need to have to deal with VUCA. So what is VUCA in engineering? What happens in the engineering perspective when we are talking about VUCA? Yeah? How to deal with it, and one of the perspective, always think local and act globally, and how we can be ready for the VUCA world. And I think last but not least, what is the role of the Institution of Engineers Indonesia to prepare qualified engineers in VUCA world. Okay, I think it has been explained also by the first speaker, the previous speaker. VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So as these events, I can see that the participants mostly coming from Indonesia. So I think that is okay for me. It is worth it if I present in both bahasa and English ya. Jadi kembali lagi, VUCA adalah 4 kata sebenarnya: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, dan ambiguity. Jadi VUCA itu adalah situasi atau kondisi lingkungan yang tengah mengalami gejolak atau volatility. Volatility itu artinya terjadi perubahan terus-menerus gitu, volatile, gampang mengalami perubahan, yang ketidakpastian gitu, uncertainty, complexity, serta ambiguity. Ambiguity artinya penafsiran bisa berbeda-beda, maknanya bisa ganda, lebih dari satu makna. Nah, itu yang dimaksud dengan ambiguity. Okay, having said that, the VUCA ya. So what should be prepare or what sort of competencies we need to have, yeah, in order to face the VUCA. So there are 4 of competencies we need to have. The first one is vision. Vision is actually the answer to the volatility. So as engineer, we trying to define the vision of the project. We are taking into account the target description, and then basically this approach makes it possible to determine a certain trend in terms of volatility. So there should be a clear vision by the leader in order to ensure that the volatility can be resolved, yeah, during the project execution, during managing the complex situation we have with VUCA. And then the understanding. So what the understanding is the answer actually to the uncertainty. Jadi pemahaman itu menjawab ketidakpastian. Jadi pemahaman itu kita harus dapatkan dari stakeholder. Jadi stakeholders feedback itu adalah jawaban dari uncertain situation. So we need to ask questions to stakeholders, what sort of directions, what sort of feedback that is required to success the project. So basically, in the line of reasoning, it means open communication will be needed throughout the enterprise, regardless of the existing organizational structure. So it is aimed at a simple flow of information, determining quick decisions. Jadi pemahaman terhadap ketidakpastian tadi harus didiskusikan ya antara pihak engineer-nya dan pihak kliennya gitu, supaya yang tidak pasti-pasti tadi bisa mendapatkan solusinya tadi ya, untuk mendapatkan keputusan-keputusan cepat. Kemudian yang ketiga, clarity. Clarity adalah the answer to complexity. Jadi kita butuh kejelasan dari pemberi kerja, ya, memastikan bahwa employees kita atau engineer kita itu bisa mengerjakan pekerjaannya, deliverable-nya sesuai dengan yang diharapkan oleh klien. So it focus on the management system in the enterprise that is understandable to employees. Employees in this case as engineers, it can be what we call yang menerima pekerjaan ya, yang mendapatkan kontrak. It results in the creation of procedures and process description that are understandable to employees. Jadi yang paling penting adalah clarity untuk menjawab complex situation, menjawab complexity. Kemudian yang terakhir adalah agility. Agility is the answer to the ambiguity. Jadi it is a kind of competence that largely supports manager in ambiguous conditions. So basically, this competency can allow for accurate identification of phenomena through experiments. So instead of discussing it, so it is easier just to create a kind of experiment, a prototype. So we should be able to test it. Jadi kira-kira ini agility menjawab ambiguity. Nah, ada beberapa skills yang harus kita miliki di era VUCA. Kami mencatat ada 10 skill yang setidaknya ya diidentifikasi untuk dealing dengan situasi saat ini. Pertama adalah strong instinct. Jadi strong instinct adalah kemampuan untuk mengeksploitasi dorongan batin untuk membangun dan menumbuhkan hal-hal serta terhubung dengan orang lain. Jadi kita punya insting yang bisa mendrive kita untuk terhubung dengan orang lain. Jadi kita harus well connected dengan teman-teman sekitar, dengan lingkungan kita. Yang kedua, certainty, kepastian. Jadi kemampuan untuk melihat chaos tadi, kekacauan, kontradiksi untuk masa depan yang belum bisa dilihat oleh orang lain. Yang ketiga, kemampuan untuk berubah ya, ability to change in even dilemmatic situation. Jadi kemampuan kita untuk mengubah situasi yang penuh dengan dilema, situasi yang tidak pasti, ya, yang kemudian membawa kita untuk bisa menyelesaikan masalah-masalah yang ada. Kemudian yang keempat, deep learning, jadi terus melakukan continuous learning, ya, karena kemampuan ini ya untuk membenamkan diri kita dalam lingkungan yang tidak dikenal, ya, sehingga kita bisa belajar dan terus belajar ya dari sumber-sumber utama. Yang kelima, dalam situasi VUCA ini kita juga harus memberikan semacam empati, jadi kemampuan untuk melihat sesuatu dari sudut pandang yang berbeda-beda, sudut pandang alam, untuk memahami dan menghormati dan belajar dari pola-pola alam. Jadi istilahnya bio empathy. Constructive depolarization adalah skill yang keenam, adalah kemampuan untuk memenangkan situasi yang menegangkan di mana komunikasi telah terpecah dan membawa orang-orang dari budaya yang berbeda menuju keterlibatan yang konstruktif. Jadi yang paling penting di sini adalah proaktif involvement, kerjasama tim, untuk bisa menyelesaikan masalah-masalah yang ada ya di seputaran proyek kita atau di lingkungan kita secara umum. Kemudian yang ketujuh adalah transparansi. Transparansi adalah kemampuan untuk bersikap terbuka dan otentik tentang nilai-nilai apa yang penting. Jadi dengan transparan, berdiskusi dengan orang, dengan berbisnis dengan orang lain, saya rasa itu akan menumbuhkan kepercayaan antar kita dan kawan-kawan tadi. Itu juga sangat membantu. Quick prototype, kemampuan untuk membuat inovasi yang cepat dengan harapan bahwa keberhasilan di kemudian hari akan membutuhkan kegagalan di awal. Jadi menurut saya tidak ada keberhasilan itu tidak gampang kita dapatkan di first try ya. Ketika kita berusaha, kita harus mengatakan kita harus sukses gitu, tidak seperti itu. Bahwa sebenarnya dengan inovasi yang cepat, yang terus-menerus, di kemudian hari kita akan mengubah kegagalan menjadi kesuksesan. Kemudian smart mob organization, jadi ini untuk skala organisasi, perusahaan, adalah kemampuan untuk membuat, terlibat dengan, dan memelihara bisnis atau jaringan perubahan sosial yang disengaja melalui penggunaan media elektronik yang cerdas atau lainnya. Dan yang terakhir adalah co-creation, artinya berkreasi bersama. Jadi kemampuan ini adalah untuk menanam, memelihara, dan menumbuhkan aset bersama yang dapat bukan hanya menguntungkan diri kita, tapi juga menguntungkan orang lain. Jadi kira-kira ada 10 skills yang kita butuhkan di VUCA era, atau kita istilahkan sebagai top 10 skills ya. Oke, karena kita adalah engineers, as we are engineers, of course, all the decisions, all the analysis should be using the engineering approach. So in this VUCA world, we recognize we are also in the era of digitalization and automation. Yeah. So when we are talking about digitalization and automation, there are several concepts that we study, not only from the university, but also we have in the real work experience. Yeah. So there is a concept called a big data. The second one, Internet of Things, sensor-based technology, geographic information system, building information modeling, augmented reality, and mobile technology. So this kind of digitalization and automation will accelerate us to make a decision. Yeah, will accelerate to produce the quality and accurate deliverables as engineers ya. Jadi ketika kita menggunakan konsep digitalisasi dan otomasi ini di dalam pekerjaan kita, tentunya akan mempercepat, mempermudah kita di dalam melakukan pekerjaan. Di situ ada efisiensi, ada akurasi, ya, ada kecepatan, dan hal-hal yang uncertain tadi kita bisa membuat menjadi certain ya dengan aplikasi digitalisasi dan otomasi tadi. Kira seperti itu. Oke, salah satu VUCA situation adalah saat ini ya, kalau kita lihat kondisi COVID-19 saat ini, seperti yang disampaikan oleh pembicara sebelumnya, itu sangat mempengaruhi progres pembangunan infrastruktur kita, dan bahkan in some cases that the budget for the infrastructure has been cut down in some extent, and then as a government, as engineers, as business developers, we need to be agile on how to develop projects with limited budget. Yeah. So this is what the engineers are doing. Engineers to design and construct the infrastructure, of course, by implementing the engineering concept, the concept of value engineering. Yeah. So what we have in this concept of value engineering, basically VE is used to solve problems, identify and eliminate the unwanted costs, while we are trying to improve the function and quality. So the aim is to increase the value of products or project developers, satisfying the product's performance requirements at the lowest possible cost. Jadi ini adalah strategi yang kita lakukan dengan konsep value engineering ini, terus melakukan analisis, kajian, kira-kira bagaimana mengoptimize biaya-biaya yang ada pada proyek itu supaya biayanya menjadi lebih sedikit tanpa mengurangi kualitas deliverable di proyek itu. Saya rasa itu objektif dari value engineering. Kemudian kita juga mendapatkan di mana saat ini di dalam bekerja sudah lebih banyak kita bekerja secara remote ya. Remote work and virtual meetings are likely to continue ya. Jadi dalam kondisi ini bisa dikatakan pertanyaannya apakah dengan bekerja virtually, bekerja remotely, bekerja meeting online itu mempengaruhi produktivitas kita. Jadi in some cases I can say that it is not impacting the productivity even though that we are working virtually, even though we are working remotely. However, also in few cases, we can see that some of engineers are not yet used to adapt, with the condition that they still need to talk, they still need to meet up directly with clients, with the project team, in the office. So there should be a combination, a hybrid, where we can do the offline as well as the online meetings. Okay, the key are the optimization and efficiency. Kira-kira seperti itu. Jadi COVID-19 ternyata mempercepat adopsi dari konsep atau implementasi otomasi dan artificial intelligence, especially in work arenas with high physical proximity. Okay, we are also dealing with climate change climate change juga itu adalah situasi atau kondisi VUCA bisa katakan. So what we need to prepare in order to face this climate change situation. So the engineers should develop resilient infrastructure. Jadi infrastrukturnya itu harus tangguh. Jadi bangun high-rise building-nya harus tangguh, bangun jembatannya harus jembatan yang sudah didesain untuk mengantisipasi bencana alam akibat dari climate change. Ketika berbicara resiliency, jadi resiliency itu refers to the capacity of a system, be it an individual, a forest, a city, or an economy, to deal with change and continue to develop. Jadi kita diminta untuk berubah dan terus berubah. In the meantime, kita juga harus terus berkembang. Gitu. In this case, as engineer, we need to build infrastructure to withstand the earthquake, floods, or any catastrophic events, including how we producing the innovative design to provide utilities for the people in climate change situation. Water, electricity, sanitation, efficiency, and optimization are still the key to this preparing the resilient infrastructure for the climate change. Okay, one of the slides, think local and act global. Jadi ini adalah formula think global, act global di mana institusi pendidikan juga harus melihat ini bagaimana supaya mahasiswa kita itu bisa bukan hanya komprehensif pengetahuannya di tingkat nasional, secara nasional, tapi juga dia bisa benchmarking dengan teman-teman yang berada di luar negeri gitu. Jadi ada opportunity untuk mahasiswa kita, untuk pelajar kita, bukan hanya belajar di dalam negeri, tapi juga bisa mendapatkan global experience di kampus-kampus luar negeri. Global exposure, student exchange programs, multicultural, international heterogeneity, ya, saya rasa itu adalah kuncinya, ya, untuk bisa menjadikan mahasiswa kita, alumni kita untuk think local and act globally. Kira-kira seperti itu. The readiness for VUCA work, I think there are 4 should be considered, ya, untuk mencapai sustainability ini. Pertama adalah kita harus peka terhadap perubahan teknologi, technological change. Yang kedua, soft skill approach. Jadi manusia saat ini bukan hanya memiliki kemampuan intelektual atau IQ yang biasa orang sampaikan, tapi juga harus memiliki soft skills seperti leadership, communications, teamwork and cooperation, capability, commitment to continuous learning, achievement motivation. Itu adalah model-model kompetensi terkait dari soft skill tadi, ya. Human orientation, lebih fokus pada human, not only focus on procedures, on system, but we also need to focus on the human relationship. Yang terakhir adalah cross-cultural sensitivity. Jadi bagaimana kita sebagai engineer Indonesia bisa bekerja di cross-cultural situation. Kita bekerja dengan teman-teman dari Malaysia, bekerja dalam suatu proyek dengan teman-teman dari Vietnam, dari Eropa, dari Australia, dan dari negara-negara lain. Saya rasa itu yang penting. Nah, saya rasa ini slide yang terakhir. Bagaimana sih role dari Persatuan Insinyur Indonesia untuk menyiapkan qualified engineers in VUCA world? Pertama, tentunya adalah melalui sertifikasi insinyur profesional. Jadi PII sudah mendapatkan pengakuan internasional, ya, di tingkat ASEAN dan Asia Pasifik sejak tahun 2003-2004. Jadi ini adalah modal kita sebagai insinyur Indonesia mendapatkan sertifikasi insinyur profesional supaya kita bisa berkompetisi di tingkat global, ya, bukan hanya di tingkat nasional. Yang kedua, terus melakukan continuing professional development program, jadi fokus pada VUCA related programs. Modelnya bisa dalam bentuk kursus, seminar, conference, technical papers, bahkan mungkin benchmarking ke negara-negara lain gitu. Kemudian yang terakhir, ongoing mentoring and supervision of young engineers under senior engineers level. Jadi di konteks Persatuan Insinyur Indonesia, kita ada 3 pelevelan. Insinyur profesional, ada insinyur profesional pratama, insinyur profesional madya, dan insinyur profesional utama. Insinyur profesional madya dan insinyur profesional utama diharapkan terus-menerus, ya, melakukan ongoing mentoring and supervision kepada yang engineers kita supaya mereka bisa lebih baik lagi di masa depan. I think engineering and construction company can also initiate this program in collaboration with, of course, with the university and the Institution of Engineers Indonesia. Okay, I think that's it from me, Ibu Yani.
Thank you, Pak Habibie, for the presentation. Thank you for sharing with us approaches that can be applied in national level. Yeah. Moving forward, let us welcome the third presenter, Professor IR Dr. Muhammad Shahir Liu. Prof. Shahir obtained his bachelor degree in civil engineering and also his PhD from Texas Tech University with specialization in structural dynamics and stochastic processes. He has 23 years experiences in industry before joining University Technology Petronas in 2009. including USA Department of Defense, Gulf of Mexico, and also onshore and offshore projects around Asian countries. Prof. Shahir, can you hear my voice?
Yes. Can you hear my voice? Yeah.
Thank you. The floor is yours, Prof. Shahir.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Yani, the Honorable Professor Insignio Selo. We also have here the Honorable Insignio Habibi Razak and also Ibu Dr. Suryani Eka. I'd like to wish all of you the best. And thank you for this opportunity to address this. Hasya, can you upload the slide, please? I would like to share some of the experiences that we have here in Malaysia, but in particular, to look at what this VUCA is actually affecting the higher education in Malaysia. Next slide. As we know, as most of the speakers, we have seen two speakers now. They have done a good job in defining the VUCA, so I don't want to go too much into the detail. But in principle, VUCA arises from the United States Department of Defense. It started from the military when the 9/11 incident that took place that has shaken the United States, so-called a stable country that has a continent that is far from anybody. You cannot walk to the United States like you can walk to the European country from Malaysia, you know. Therefore, with that, they have started the War College in the United States Army to train the military commander to think in a VUCA environment. So this reflects the volatility, the uncertainty, the complexity, the ambiguity. It is so-called the black swan event. The black swan event refers to those events that has been used typically if you have seen in those MI6 movies, James Bond, you know, those kind of regime, you know that they are actually addressing a VUCA issue. Next slide. Let's take a look at some of these examples of VUCA situation. Natural catastrophe. In Malaysia, we've seen a lot of things this past year, you know. There are a lot of things that has affected us, a lot of things that has affected our economy for a change, you know. Malaysia is no longer that competitive anymore. We have been affected by many things that can be classified under VUCA. Next one. Then we are looking at pandemic outbreak. Although we have managed it well, the pandemic has actually siphoned the funds from the country. Next slide. Right, and then geopolitical tension is the biggest thing now. Look at what Russia is doing in the Ukraine, getting ready to attack Ukraine, and the NATO is coming together to do that. Is driving the oil price up, you know, so there is a lot of uncertainty in hedging for the futures. Some of the company has been doing very well in the past, working in VUCA, for example, the Southwest Airlines. They have actually buy fuel ahead of time, and they have actually make additional profit by 50% margin. So these are the kind of things that you will see the future landscape. It started from 1999, and also the biggest enablers in terms of VUCA, things that actually disrupt us today are technology. And technology are main disruptor in our life actually now. Next slide. Right, let's take a look at the kind of situation affecting the business landscape. Cyber incidents is nothing new. Today, we still have in Malaysia, for example, in Indonesia, I'm very sure as well. And then you have business interruption, supply chain disruption. COVID came in, China has not been able to support that. So we have that logistic issue. If we have microchips problem, we have all sort of things that comes in together with the pandemic. Another thing is about natural catastrophe. You know, we have COP26. You have in the past President Trump who don't want to sign into anything, for example, right? If he doesn't sign into anything, COP26 is not going to move, you know, whether we like it or not. And then we also have pandemic outbreak, learning to work from home, arguing, mental health. So this has created additional constraint to the VUCA environment. And then changes in legislation. We also have climate change as a start, fire, explosion, and so on. But the nice part is you don't hear much about terrorism anymore, right? Although it is part and parcel of VUCA work as well. Because with all these things, suddenly, I don't hear anything about terrorism. Next slide. Okay, my initial thought on the role academic institution is first we always talk about triple helix initially, then we go on to quadruple helix to include the society, you know, and then eventually we move on to the next one. We talk about quintuple helix. We have environment added in, you know, and then when we look at that as a total academic institution role, it's actually about reskilling and upskilling. We have to teach our kids to learn, unlearn, relearn. You know, that is the concept that we work at. Also, manpower resource, because manpower resourcing are very limited, we must be able to deploy our manpower resources to the right place at the right time, you know, to the right things that we want to do. And then research one-stop center, we don't want to have all our faculty members running all over the place, doing all sort of things, you know, that doesn't address what the world is looking at. And then, of course, we need to develop human capital and talent supply. Next slide. Now, Malaysia has participated in this PISA OECD country sort of how competitive our scientific program is. And then you can see from here, if you look at the reading for Malaysia, we have typically not been doing very well. 54, 57, mathematics, science, we do 52, you know. Country like Singapore, even China, Shanghai, they actually have implemented various other form of reformation, right? They have reformed their education. They look at ways on how they look at mathematics, for example, science, for example. In Malaysia, you cannot get away by not spoon-feeding the student, you know. You have to spoon-feed the student. If you don't spoon-feed them, they're going to give you a rating of fail to the lecturer when they evaluate the lecturer. So these are the kind of thing that we are expecting today. Next slide. So when you talk about VUCA reality, it has actually increased the unemployment rate. About 20 years ago, this phenomenon has started. 60% of graduates have found a job that's not related to their field. That is a fact. And then in the past, in 1960, when they first forecast that the ladies would not be in the workforce, they were wrong. They found that 30% of ladies actually show up 20 years later in the workforce. So that has actually causes the work environment to be tipsy-turvy to a certain extent. And today, unemployment rate actually is growing in every country. It is very scary. In Malaysia, we have seen a shortage of manpower, but we don't see any of that being filled up by the youngster today. So that is obviously something is not quite correct. The main driving force behind that is that these are the kids that do not have the kind of experience that is needed in the VUCA world. So they have felt left out and they couldn't participate in the employment. Next slide. Now, when I look at old elite educational institute, this is probably addressing people like myself. You know, in the past, teacher walks in, we walk in, we say, good morning, sir, good morning, professor, good morning, teacher, you know, but today we don't have that anymore. So we are looking at 21st century learners in which innovation, entrepreneurship, and creativities are something that the learners or the students should be doing. The future is actually about personalizing educational experiences. It is building instruction out of student passions and capabilities. Again, like I mentioned earlier, we are talking about helping students with individualized learning and assessment to foster their engagement and talents in the future. We do not plan a program for the future. We cannot do that. We must plan program for today. And this is the most important part. How many times we have planned the program for the future, it never kicks off because something has changed ultimately. So we must address what is current issue rather than the future issue, because the current issue is going to dictate the future issue in the VUCA world. Next slide. So these are the education institution response to VUCA. When you talk about volatility, you are dealing with volatility is to, you know, look at the opportunities that you have. I always believe that every single misfortune, there is an opportunity, right? That is part and parcel of life, has always been. Allah is great. He has always participated in this event. And we look at this as an opportunity where we devote our resources toward developing agility. We must have an agile faculty members. We must develop students to be agile in shifting their mindset, in developing a mindset that can tackle a volatile environment. Second thing, uncertainty. You know, today, if you talk to any student, they're very blur in the way they view the world, because they are very uncertain about what's going on with the world. Most of the times because they don't read much. When they don't read much, you don't have information. To overcome uncertainty, one of the things that you have to look at is actually look at the information that you get as much as possible so that you can clarify and clear a lot of the uncertainty in deriving at various issues. And that, I mean, you must have clarity to overcome uncertainty. When you talk about complexity, it's about adopting a structure that mirrors that of the environment. A lot of the capable organization, right? Grab, for example, recently I came to know about how they have been doing that, incorporating VUCA environment, right? Earlier on, you have mentioned about Uber and those kind of things. So these are what we talk about. It's so complex, you know, technology is so complex. It has actually changed our life significantly. Now we have to adapt to that. We have to actually mirror the environment to reflect what that complexity is addressing. And then the last one is about ambiguity. Ambiguity, then you have to be creative, innovative. I always ask people to think outside the box. Do not think normally anymore. You have to decide what is creative and what is not. So the final aspect of VUCA is about speed, the pace of doing things. So speed and frequency of external knowledge, absorption of an organization are the key factor. You notice that organization who sit down, laid back, don't care much, don't do much, will not survive. And it has already happened everywhere. Even this pandemic has proven to kill a lot of the businesses out immediately. Next slide. So to do that, we're creating a robustness of the educational framework and delivery. We're looking at academic curriculum that's market-driven, because, you know, in the VUCA world, strategy and marketing is thrown out completely. There's no such thing as strategy and marketing. You can plan all you want, but when VUCA comes, we are finished. So this must be market-driven. You have to adopt innovative delivery, and you must be flexible in degree offering. So with that, we move. You must make sure that your research, innovation, and commercialization ecosystem in creating entrepreneurship mindset, in creating creative mindset, must always be there to instill the student to develop that particular skill. So in short, what I'm getting at, you should produce people of jack of all trades. You cannot be specialized in one area, right? Because, you know, the biggest killer to all of us today, including myself, is actually artificial intelligence. So how are we going to overcome that, for example, right? Next slide. Now, when you look at that from academic standpoint, of course, this is just part of the model. There could be other model that can take place today. You look at how you will extensively and continuously accommodate VUCA effect by bridging the gap between stakeholder and academician. So you bring in CEO at the faculty, from the industry. You have 2U, 2I. 2U, 2I is actually seeing to be more favorable today because of the VUCA environment. They have experience in industry. I mean, they are trained in industry, trained in the academic, and then they got awarded the degree. Longer internship program has always been one of the critical issues addressing the student needs and also addressing the industry needs. Virtual student and faculty exchange. Now, COVID has actually transformed that for all of us. Visiting professor, we don't have very much of that. We should encourage more of that. Adjunct lecture from the industry should have increased by threefold, for example. And then industry advisory panel, as well as market-driven program offering. And at the end of the day, I always believe that academic program should have a proper business development to study the VUCA effect and to study the different continent in offering the program. Next slide. So in order to achieve that, we're looking at a dynamic ecosystem. First one is experiential learning via strategic partnering and market presence. You know, you need to be known. UTP needs to be a friend to Indonesia, for example. We need to be friends in the Philippines. We need to be friends in Thailand, Vietnam, you know, in the European country, in China, in everywhere. Because that's how we create experiential learning, through strategic partnering. We cannot be sitting alone and say, oh yeah, hi guys, I got lots of money. Money don't count anymore. The other one is about university self-check on research focus. Again, I said that earlier, we must be very focused in our research to reflect megatrend. And also we should create Nexus platform where we bring in all our friendly collaborators together in addressing a particular needs in the research program. And then of course, I think manpower resource sharing via research attachment is one of the great things that I have seen today. It should be done more from university to university, with university, different universities, different culture and so on. This would actually enhance the manpower outlook and visibility. Industry touchpoint is very important because industry touchpoint has always created a need for the stakeholder to be part and parcel of the quintuple helix, and also finally establishing and pivoting of business game plan. So we have to be flexible in looking at how we do our business. How many times for the last 3 years I've changed the business plan? Not much, but I still keep on changing it just to reflect and to stay competitive in the VUCA world. Next slide. So that's all that I have. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address the participant.
Thank you, Prof. Shahir, for the presentation and sharing with us the responses of higher education in dealing with VUCA work, especially how we prepare the students. Last but not least, let us continue our session with a presentation from Professor I.R. Selo Sulistyo, PhD. Prof. Selo will deliver content related with managing changes at higher education in the VUCA world. Prof. Selo obtained his bachelor degree in electrical engineering and master in information technology from Universitas Gadjah Mada. Prof. Selo also obtained his MSc and PhD from Edger University, Norway. He has interests in intelligent transportation systems, including connected cars, software modeling, mobile app development, Internet of Things and connected objects, software service engineering or e-services. Prof. Selo has great experiences in the management and administration for higher education, especially in the financial planning. Prof. Selo, can you hear my voice?
Yes, sure, clear.
Okay, Prof. Selo, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you please help me to share screen?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Honorable Professor Shahir, Bu Ika, Pak Habibie, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. From the previous speaker, we have got many things describing what is VUCA and also how VUCA affected many areas. I would like to, for the last sessions, I would like to talk about higher education and VUCA world and the perspective of management. Next slide. Yeah, the outline, I will start with the VUCA, but seems we can go through the next slide. It just impresses that VUCA for the first time was used in 1987, drawing on the leadership theories of Warren Bennis and Bert Nanus to describe situations at the times, and also was introduced by U.S. Army War College to describe the situations where the end of the Cold War. Next slide. Many believe that we are now living in VUCA situations. If we look at this slide, showing that in 1 minute, there are many data generated from many applications. For example, if we look at Netflix, there are 28,000 subscribers watching in 1 minute. And also WhatsApp, for example, 69 million messages sent there are many data generated in 1 minute. YouTube, for example, also 500-hour video uploaded to the internet, and this huge data then may be used for predicting what will happen in the future, such as maybe business revenue or business growth, and also maybe available jobs, and so on. Next, we are also living in the era of AI, where smart machines have an ability to sense, reason, learn, and also even inject. This may lead to many jobs will be displaced by machines. It is predicted that the AI economy value will grow of about 17 billion US dollar by 2025. Next. Now, I would like to let you look at the situations of higher education in Indonesia. Next, currently, there are almost 8 million students registered in 2020, where about 6% of them are going to vocational schools. As we know that the vocational type of education is designed to make student work ready upon graduations. It provides practical educations, so students develop specific industry skills. But I think 6% is too small for Indonesia. We have, according to KKNI, 5 different paths of educations. From the last is from the most left one is program academic. That is the academic part, and then the vocational part and profession part, and so on. Indonesia actually needs more than 6% of students going to the vocational part. Next. If we look at the predictions of available jobs in Indonesia by 2030, it is predicted that 23 million jobs will be displaced by robot or automations. But 27 to up to 46 million new jobs will be created. Healthcare, constructions, manufacture, and retail are among domains that will benefit increased labor demands. Therefore, Indonesians should be ready for it. Students must learn new skills, especially skills that are not easily done by machines. Higher educations play an important role for these situations to cope the problems. Next, and if you look the process of educations according to the current models, it's just like industrial process. We have input and then output of the process, and also outcome and impact. There's also a curriculum for doing the process, including the human resources for doing the activity, and also a standard for referring the output. Output-based educations, very well education system that are currently adopted by university in Indonesia. Next. Yeah, that was I said before that it's just like industry's process. We can generate output based on the process that we created upon the input that we have. Next. Of course, the two are different, but in some sense they are the same, similar at least. Previous speaker has also assume or consider that the pandemic COVID-19 is also VUCA. I agree with that. Next. At least for the economy, many countries experience minus growth of economic. Next. In educations, I think every institutions have experienced that pandemics things in technology and facilities, also changed curriculum and teaching learning practices. For example, how we deliver the material, synchronous versus asynchronous. Maybe we need to redesign the how students collaborate with each other, how we dealing with the psychomotoric problem when we need to working in the laboratory, and also the most problem with the pandemic in higher education is with the assessments. There is integrity that I think many has similar problem with integrity. How we can make sure that students keep the integrity. Of course, in 2 years, new students do not have or lost campus experiences. For the master programs, even they even not totally since the environment of the campus. Soft skill also one the other things that are questioned, and also family matters. Next. KPI of the universities is also be a problem. Financial sustainability, since the last number going through this campus. Graduate employability is also another problem. Human resources, another problem where we work from home for long times, then seems to be psychological problems. Of course, we need to think about the ICT policy, because the massive use of technology, ICT technology for our activity, and also other tool for laboratory for the students. Next. But on the other hand, in actual, at least in my campus, in my faculty, we are happy with the productivity, especially for product with related with the medical equipment or other equipment related with the protecting against the COVID. Many prototypes, many publications, many patents we have produced during the pandemic. Next. In higher education context, at least as my opinions, what we need is just shifting the mindset. VUCA will happen not only tomorrow, not only yesterday, but it will happen in the future. So, in my opinions, what we have to do is just how we manage the situations. Next. it is about new ways of doing learning, doing teaching, doing research. Pandemic have proved that the technology enables us to do online learning and teaching. Now hybrid learning seems to be a permanent solution for mostly learning process. With the current available technology and tools, innovations will be in the spirit of our educations. Next, it is about being adaptive to react to the change. My favorite quote that really fun responding to the Fuka is from the Carlos Darwin, where it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. Next, in my opinion, it is also about continuous improvement driven by the external stimulus. That is, in this case, VUCA. If the environment changes, then we should modify the plans, and a new cycle or iterations will be done. Regarding this, I also have a favorite quote from Winston Churchill, that is, to improve is to change, and to be perfect is to change often. So we should doing PDCA in a very frequent, especially when the external stimulus changes. Next, it is also about shifting to a new way of organizing resources. It is about leadership. Higher education should have strong leaders to be able to manage two important factors. System change, and the second one is people factors. How these two factors synchronize each other will make sure that the higher education institutions will be able to manage VUCA. Next, the last slide. The messages that I want to deliver in this talk are that higher educations that can sense, assess, respond, and adapt to the pressures change because of the VUCA faster than rivals will be better at capturing the opportunities and mitigating the downside risk. It is, in my opinion, it's just change management. We can take it or leave it. KKNI is a good in my context, in a context of education system in Indonesia, but we have to make sure how the implementations of the KKNI. University role is very important. The university should lead the way of how we manage the situations, how we manage the VUCA. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation, Prof. Selo, and thank you for sharing with us the approaches in managing changes inside the higher education as responses to deal with the VUCA environment. Many thanks once again to all the panelists for the insightful presentations. From the presentation, we can illustrate cases of VUCA and the potential initiatives and approaches from regional and national level as well as higher education. I believe all of us having curiosity in dealing with VUCA world, and building question in mind. Thus, we would like to invite questions from the audiences or participants. Kindly address your inquiries through the chat box at Zoom or YouTube. While waiting the question, I would like to ask to Dr. Eka, Ibu Dr. Eka, and Pak Habibi as representative from industry. Dr. Eka, what is actually... Yes. What is actually the biggest obstacle in realizing the local government initiatives? And how do you feel the role of higher education in supporting the initiatives? Because previously you already highlight the initiative by local government in responding to the VUCA environment.
Oh yeah, thank you, Ibu Yani. Well, the biggest challenge is at the moment actually, if we have limited funding, then all the designs, infrastructure designs, are very difficult to implement. That will be the first point. But then we need to be more creative, finding the alternative resources. For example, we know that Lombok is disaster-prone area, especially with the earthquakes, for example. So we consider that the infrastructure buildings need to be earthquake resilience, and we also have the local materials. For example, like bamboo, we can also consider using local materials. That's how to be creative, I guess. And we can also learn from the existing local people how they live here. For example, in the northern part of Lombok, they can survive in the earthquakes because they have local design houses with the considering the local wisdoms, using existing materials at the site. So that's how we learn how to adapt actually. So from all the presenters, from Pak Selo, Pak Sahir, and also Pak Habibi, we can learn that we all considers that we need to have the knowledge and also use that knowledge to create more innovative ideas, and also finding the strategic ways of implementing the ideas. Yeah. Thank you, Bu Yani.
Okay, thank you for the answer, Ibu Dr. Eka. So actually, how do you feel at this moment if you are seeing the engineers who already graduated from the university or from the higher education? How do you feel about the role of education in supporting your initiatives?
Yes, the engineers, especially the maybe the newly recent engineering graduates, they are having more challenges. I graduated from Gajah Mada, my background in engineering, teknik sipil, ya, civil engineering from Gajah Mada University. It was back in 1994. At that time, maybe the challenge, I think, with now the recently new graduates, maybe must be really different, yeah. And at that time, I was like, I still can remember that I was so too technical. And when I got a job working with the government, then I start to realize that, okay, I didn't know anything about policy governments. And so that's why I was thinking that recent graduate, if they want to work together in the Fuka world, especially with the government, they also need to learn how the government work as well. So not only the engineering side of it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing with us your perspective, Dr. Eka. So
Thank you.
related with a response from Ibu Dr. Eka, I would like to ask a question to Pak Habibi. How do you feel, Pak Habibi, the readiness of our engineers to survive in the VUCA world at this moment? And what would be your aspiration to support or enhance the readiness at national level?
Okay, thank you, Ibu Yani ya. So, yep, yes, that's really a very good question from your side. I think when we are talking about the readiness, we need to start from on how we develop the curriculum in the level of the university for the students. I think to make sure that the curriculum is adopting the requirement for the national, for both national and international requirements. I think also the pathway forward within the PIN, now we have the accreditation program with IAB, Indonesia Accreditation Board for Engineering Accreditation. And then we have LAM Technique. So I think we are moving forward toward the right direction, I guess. I think just to make sure that the quality of our alumni remains in the same quality of the what we have internationally. So I think that's the first one. The second one, once they are graduates, so they need to find a good place for to have the experience. So this will involve not only the university, but also need to involve the synergy collaboration with the industry, with the Institution of Engineers Indonesia, to make sure that our graduates can be employed by the industry. I think with the concept of engineers in training introduced in US, I think Prof. Shahir understands very well that he is the licensed engineer from Texas. And that would be very good for our engineers to gain the experience. And once they have the 4 or 5 years experience, they can take a professional engineer's exam and then certified or licensed as professional engineer. So this professional engineer recognition not only recognized within Indonesia, the local market, but also recognized globally. So I think PII is already accepted, already recognized as one of the institutions who is internationally recognized to produce the professional engineer certification. Yeah. So if we can check, we have been signing the what we call the mutual recognition arrangement with the ASEAN countries, and we've been signing the mutual recognition arrangement with the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. So that would be a good thing to be as engineers of Indonesia, as we have PII should always push, yeah, of course with the collaboration between PII, industry, and the university to keep maintaining and even improving the quality of our engineers. I think that's it from me, Bu Yani.
Okay, thank you, Pak Habibie, for sharing with us your aspiration about how to enhance or to support the readiness of the engineers at national level. Now, actually, I'm quite curious with the perspective from higher education. We already heard aspiration as well as perspective from the industry. I would like to ask to address some question to Prof. Shahir as well as Prof. Selo. So, Prof. Shahir, is there actually any myth that may tackle the future engineers to be master in their field? And how do you inspire the engineers to challenge themselves to always be ready in the VUCA environment?
You know, that question I want to answer outside the box, if I can.
Yes, please, Prof.
In modern concept, during my time, we study, we learn, we do our homework, we pass the exam, and then we go on with life, right? But I was fortunate to be mentored by a few professors in the university days. And with that, I believe that students should live in an environment where they are mentored by a few people, not necessarily the faculty members, but that is part and parcel of life that we have to look at, because there is no compromise about wisdom. Wisdom comes with age, whether we like it or not. That has always been the case, and wisdom has always comes from the perspective of knowledge acquired and also the experience that you have gone through in life. So therefore, if a person is mentored by a senior person, the opportunity for him to adapt, right, to innovate things and to think outside the box are far better than if they just strictly come out from universities and then, trying to fulfill the job market. Even today, when you talk to employers, I've been going around talking to a lot of employees, multinational company, Malaysia, big corporation, Petronas is a classic example, I noted that they're actually not very keen to take student who has 4.0, right? 4.0 GPA. They are prepared to take students who are who they call it a very good, very articulate in nature, for example, have very strong soft skill. Some of the hiring metrics actually included 50% soft skill. And that's a very big numbers, 50%. And at the end of the day, it's about managing the expectation. Because as an engineer today, we can talk to a lot of our engineers today. A lot of design are done by software. A lot of things have been done by artificial intelligence. By the end of the day, where do we go from here? We have to train our engineers to be the person who manage their outcome or the output from the AI processes or from the machine learning processes. It cannot be like, I learned something from the machine learning. I look through the results and say, this is the right thing to do. No, it cannot be like that. So that is where we are superior than the machine, right? It's sort of like we are better off than angel, because angel follow instructions strictly, but human beings are given the wisdom to accept or don't accept, to follow or not to follow. So, so my model for a student is that you must always create an environment where they innovate their thinking process, right? Where they are looking at environment of being an employer rather than an employee. So they have a better chance of surviving in this VUCA world. Thank you, Dr. Yani.
Thank you very much, Prof. Shahir, for sharing with us your perspective. I guess this one answering the perspective or our aspiration already shared by Dr. Eka as well as Pak Habibi. Okay, the next one, I would like to address a question to Prof. Selo. Prof. Selo, I'm quite interested with the topic highlighted in your presentation related with changes and the necessities for us to adapt to survive. For sure, we have to change to survive. In dealing with changes at higher education, how do you motivate and inspire the faculty members to be ready for changes and to overcome obstacles of VUCA world at the higher education?
Okay, thank you, Bu Yani. It is not an easy questions. I mean, difficult questions. But in my opinion, to motivate the faculty members, we can create a program that giving an opportunity to strengthen the collaborations between university and industries, because if we learn from the developed countries such as Japan, Germany, and also the other countries, the relations between industry and university are very strong. We can learn from them, but of course, difficulties also arise in Indonesia. We have been doing with this strengthened collaboration for many years, but it's very difficult. Maybe it has also related with the characteristic of Indonesians. We are happy with the imported devices, imported things, but less interested with the local products. Maybe that is my answer for motivating the faculty members, strengthen the collaborations between industry and university.
Thank you for sharing with us, Prof. Selo. So I believe it will support or enhance the confidence, I guess, the level of confidence for the faculty members. Another one question, Prof. Selo. What would be the ideal characteristic of alumni who are able to survive and success in a VUCA world?
According to the RIKA, Rencana Indo Akademik, this is the main document of university, that students or alumni should be learners for the whole life. I mean, graduation is just starting for a new step, new pace for learning. So innovations to be learners, I think is the most important for alumni. Of course, other capability also required. For example, ability to collaborate, ability to have a good communications, ability to work hard, and so on. But the most, I think, the most important is to be a learner for the whole life.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Selo, for sharing your perspective on the ideal characteristic of alumni. Moving forward, there is actually one question in the chat box. It's a quite long question. I will try to read it. And then while waiting for this, we would like to invite other questions from the audiences as well as the participants. Please don't hesitate to address your question in the chat box in the YouTube or inside the Zoom. Okay, so this question from Pak Bayu Aryawan. So basically, the question addressed to Prof. Selo as well as Pak Habibie. He actually would like to know what is the strategy for the future in actually creating innovative products that has commercial innovative products. Okay, maybe I invite Pak Habibie to answer first. So what actually the strategy that can be used to actually innovate a commercial product?
Okay, thank you. Yes, this has been actually addressed by several participants in previous events, previous webinars di Kuliah Umum. I think in my perspective, we all should learn from China. Why we need to learn from China? They are very fast in growing their industry, and because they have a strong support from the government. And basically, China, when they do something, when they create something, the process is not starting from zero. So basically, they are doing a kind of a reverse engineering approach in all products, innovative products that which they are producing so far. So they've been very, very aggressive in technology so far, in developing the technology, the new technology, as we know, because there is a kind of a collaboration between the government, industry, and the university. So, for instance, when I did a project in China, we're talking about one of the LNG plants on that time, back in 2013. The technology was owned by the American, and then they invited the American company to be the engineer and contractors for the project. In parallel, in the meantime, basically during the project execution, during the concept phase, the construction phase, they are learning. They are doing kind of a reverse engineering from the piping and instrumentation diagram produced by this American company. So that is the way they are doing, creating the technology, actually creating the innovative products, all those things. So they are not starting from the scratch. They are basically doing a reverse engineering. So why we are Indonesian not start thinking about that as part of big group collaboration between what I mentioned before, industry should talk to the university what sort of technology they want to develop. So let's the university, the R&D, PPT start doing, and basically not doing from the scratch. So we have all the process flow diagram, the piping instrumentation diagram already there. So what we need to do is to learn the system, to learn the process, and doing kind of a modification. And then we can create one patent technology which can be accepted by the industry. I think that's one of the examples that I can mention in this webinar. Okay, thank you, Bu.
Okay, thank you, Pak Habibie, for sharing your perspective. And then next, I would like to invite Prof. Selo to answer this question. Prof. Selo, so basically, Pak Bayu Aryawan also highlighted an issue about import, yeah. So how actually the practical strategy to innovate the product, so we can
in progress.
We can perhaps create an innovative product to reduce the import, maybe. Thank you, Prof. Selo.
Okay, thank you. This is also difficult questions because it's too many stakeholders involved. But of course, goodwill, I mean, political goodwill, long-time commitment, support from the government is the key. We can learn from other countries, but if the government do not support for the effort, then it's difficult for us to accelerate the innovations and also to decrease the import demand. Another part, I mean, another stakeholders that might be also involved is from the social sciences or sociological sciences, because in my opinion, culture is one of the important part. Our culture, as I said before, that culture is difficult to change. It needs many years to change the culture. Another thing is trust. Many of us do not trust with our products. It is also difficult to solve. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I got a new question from Parwi Janto. Whether there is a plan to invoke especially young or fresh engineer to become a professional one in Indonesia. Of course, there is PPI, Program Profesi Insinyur, that be held by at least 40 institutions in Indonesia. A year, maybe around 3,000 professional engineer graduated from these programs. Of course, this number is very, very small comparing with the number of Indonesia. I mean, the populations of Indonesia. We need, of course, many institutions to have or provide PPE, Program Profesi Insinyur. There is a plan, of course. the undang-undang government law has been released in 2014, Undang-Undang Keinsinyuran. The aim is to create, to provide more professional engineer in Indonesia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prof. Selo, for sharing your perspective and answering the question from the audiences. And then we also received another question from Dr. Ataka. So one of the impact of VUCA is engineers and students in engineering seem to be under increasingly higher pressure. This can result to stress, depression, and other mental health issues. What are the strategies of university, government, or professional association to help engineers and students coping with this issue? I guess this one is very good question. Maybe I start to invite Prof. Shahir for sharing the perspective on this.
I was hoping you didn't call my name, but anyway, all right. This is a good question. It's just not stress and pressure for the student, also for the professors. It works both ways actually, right? Except that perhaps we from the university standpoint, we always have a counseling unit to talk to the students, to counsel them, to make sure that they understand the issue at hand and so on. At the same time, we also try the value of empathy that we increase over this pandemic period is very significant, right? We are telling the students, this is what we can do for you, this is what we can support you, and this is what we can give to you. But at the same time, we are also quite practical in looking at how we introduce the hybrid, even at workplace. We are talking to staff who are having difficulty, children running all over the place. You can hear from the online, this is something that's really bad, very stressful for the women's folks, right? And by the same time, we understand that this exists. This is a reality of life, and we are continuing to monitor that. We are continuing to give our support as humanly as possible, as humane as possible. But apart from that, I think everybody is learning from each other. I don't have a set of formula except for the fact that we must engage them. We must continue to talk with them. So that is my answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Shahir, for sharing your perspective on this. I would like to invite another perspective from higher education. Prof. Selo, would you mind to share your perspective on this matter?
At least in our faculty, we provide what we call a health promoting unit. It's a unit for not only promote for healthy life for students, but also for the faculty members. Not only physical health, but also mental health. These HPU, health promoting units, are very active, promoting activities in many programs there. So I hope with this unit, students in faculty of engineering can copying the issues with their health problems.
Thank you, Prof. Selo, for sharing your perspective as well. I guess from higher education side, we do agree that we need the psychological health unit inside the university to support on this matter. How about in the government? I would like to invite Ibu Dr. Eka for sharing the perspective on this matter.
Yeah, this is a very interesting segment about the issue of mental health. I agree that engineers, they're already busy with studying about the engineering subject. It's already make them headaches. And then not only to mention again that we are dealing with the VUCA world. So yes, it's a double load for them. So the most important thing is, I agree with Pak Sahrir, yeah, we need to create the environment where they feel when they are learning, they're not really forced into learning, but they can like naturally learn something about the engineering stuff. So in that way, the learning process become really enjoyable for them, and they can also become more productive. So the idea also, it's in the engineering curriculums, maybe they need to have one particular session where they can actually talk to the mentor, or also or maybe not only mentor, yeah, because in my idea the explicit knowledge is important, but the tacit knowledge, so like wisdom that the engineering graduates can learn, it also important. And how they can learn that tacit knowledge, it's actually by get involved and having dialogues and more like open communications with seniors, and also people that they can trust. In that way, they can learn about the technical engineering, but also soft skill as well. So the tacit knowledge will enhance their understanding about the content and also about the environment where they have to work in the future. So they are more prepared, they have more wisdoms, and they can also deal with themselves with the issue of the mental health that we discuss now. They know that they need to deal with that, and they know how to do it themselves. Otherwise, it's gonna be very difficult if they get the support from outsider, but they are not strong from the inside. So yeah, that's what I can think of. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Dr. Eka, for sharing the perspective. Yeah, I do agree with you. So we need to create supporting environment, as well as we are not only preparing the students or the future engineers with the technical capability only. Okay, thank you, Dr. Eka. And the last one, I would like to invite Pak Habibie. How about your perspective on this matter, Pak Habibie, as a representative from the professional association?
Okay, I think in the context of professionals, as I am more working in the industry, in the engineering, consultancy, and construction services side. So I think the most important thing when to make sure that our team is not in the stressful situation, I think we need to create a very healthy work environment. So everybody needs to support each other. So as a senior, we need to support our more junior engineers. As junior engineers also should follow the advice, kind of instruction in order for them to be successful. Of course, the direction will be more coming from the senior people. So this should be managed in the harmonious relationship between senior and junior engineers. Of course, in several companies, they have kind of mentoring, supervision, will increase the capability of the junior engineers, where they can learn the experience of more senior people. And I think also in some extent, there are several companies doing refreshment trainings. So not only doing technical things, which will make our engineers also quite stressful. Also, we can do kind of leadership training, management, or even project management training. So they can know the perspective to be a technical person. They also understand on how they position themselves as part of the management, as part of the leadership when they are working not only as technical as engineers, but in the future also they will be working more as a project manager, which of course they need to have more soft skills rather than technical competencies. I think things like that we can keep promoting to our industries on how to further develop the competency of young engineers to be more mature, to more understand on the technical skills they are going to have, and kind of project management skills they are going to have in the future when they are stepping up as project manager, when they are stepping up as project director, or even CEO in the company. I think that's it from me. Thank you, Bu.
Thank you, Pak Habibie, for sharing with us your perspective on this matter. I'm actually quite interested with the statement addressed by Pak Parwijanto in the chat box. He said that in fact it's difficult to find out young engineer who can work professionally. Now I would like to invite our representative from industry, Ibu Eka. How do you think, Ibu Dr. Eka? How do you think about this statement? Can you share with us your perspective on this matter?
Yes, young engineer. Yes, because for young engineers at this moment, actually, they are actually more creative than us. Like, we are also engineer back in 90s, for example, but then the engineers nowadays, they are more creative than us, except that they have a different idea of approach things. So, I mean, because of the age differences, maybe some companies think that maybe some companies need to also understand that the way to approach the young engineers when they start working, it's actually we need to put the trust on them as well, so they will have confidence. So in turns, they will show that they can do work better for us. That's for my belief. But the challenge is how we talk to them. That will be the main issue that we need to solve. Because when we look at the outside, maybe we think they know nothing, but actually they have more creative thinking inside of them because of their age, and they may be exposed to the technology and also from the way they learn. I mean, not only we are looking at their academic record, but also looking at how they get involved in the organizations, in the universities. That's also a good point to look at how they can deal with the job. So this is actually about the how they manage the work in the company. And it's also part of the learning process that they already gain when they get involved in the organizations when they were at the university. That's what I believe. Thank you, Ibu Yani.
Thank you, Ibu Dr. Eka. Next one, I would like to invite Pak Habibie. How you respond to this statement?
Okay, can I get the question repeated?
Yeah, so basically it is about the fact highlighted by Pak Parwijanto that in fact it's difficult to find out young engineer who can work professionally.
Okay, yeah, basically you will find out in Indonesia that there are several engineers more working in the local companies. They don't get involved quite deeper, interacting with the international experts. Yeah, and in several occasions also you may find international companies who employ young engineers. Yeah, which is to me these young engineers, they are very good in terms of technical, and also very good in soft skills, things like that. Yeah, So I think it depends on the company they work for. They work with. If they work in the multinational companies involving multicultural diversities, multicultural differences, they will find out that they can learn not only a national standard, but they also learn the international standard. For instance, for Canadian company, of course, they will introduce Canadian standards. For the American company, they will introduce more the American codes and standards. So that's the way the Indonesian engineers will learn the way on how to be accepted, not only national, but also globally. In some cases also, as I mentioned before, that there is one engineer, they're only working for the local company, for the local consultant. So not much things happening, yeah. In terms of competencies, they can be lack, yeah. They don't adapt the international practice where they have to act as engineer, how to deal with people, how to deal with clients, how to talk with the supervisors, how to talk with their subordinates. So that can be different. Really depends on where the engineers are working. If they're working for multinational companies, you will find that they are very capable. But if they are more on the local consultancy company, you will find also they quite lack in communication, can be lack in the technical knowledge as well. I think that's it from me, Ibu. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Habibie, for sharing your perspective. And then I would like to invite perspective from higher education. Prof. Selo, would you mind to share how actually higher education giving response on this statement, given the fact that difficult to find out young engineer who can work professionally? Thank you, Prof.
I've written the response, but I will try to read it. I do agree with the fact that it's difficult to find out young professional in the engineer, but we can do it together to have to create professional engineer. There is a program MPKM from the government that trying to strengthen the collaboration between university and industry, where the students have an opportunity to take 20 credits or up to 3 semesters outside the programs, the study programs. So hopefully with the 3 semester in the industry, then they can learn many things in the industry, how to be a professional worker and also a professional engineer when they are graduated from the university. So strong relations, strong collaborations between industry and university is, in my opinion, is the key for creating young professional engineer.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Selo, for sharing your perspective. Last but not least, I would like to invite perspective from the representative of higher education. Prof. Shahir, how you respond the fact that it is difficult to find out young engineer who can work professionally?
Okay. First of all, let me maybe back off one step or two backwards. I believe, right, these young engineers, it's just a matter of exposure. It's a matter of sharing with them the right things that they should be doing as an engineer to be, right? So what I'm looking at is like myself currently. I just give a local example. I'm the chairman for the Energy Institute Malaysia, right? I'm a chartered engineer as well for the Commonwealth country, right? We're under the colonial time of United Kingdom. So we are the chartered engineers. So we have created the Young Professional Network. This Young Professional Network is about putting together all the young people, especially the undergraduate student from all discipline of engineering, so that they will appreciate what a professional life is all about. So we bring in monthly talk by the professional engineers, right? We let them share their views, show to them what are the benefits by being inside the YPN network, right? Young Professional Network. And we have also created that kind of society in every university in Malaysia. That's our goal anyway, right? We have done a few. And that's one way of looking at it. The other one, of course, at the university, they have the embedded program, Law and Ethics in Engineering, professionalism is being taught in capstone project, right? And also bringing in adjunct lecture from the industry, right? All the time. Some departments are doing fabulous, in terms of bringing in practicing professional engineers. By the end of the day, this is the issue that we have in Malaysia. The guy who comes to talk at the university don't have an IR, for example. It's going to be very difficult for him to talk about professionalism, which is why one of the reasons that the government of Malaysia has changed for the engineering faculty in Malaysia is to increase the number of IR to get accredited for the program. So I think that is also timely. It works both sides. So in other words, the one that is teaching, the one that is learning, must both share the same aspiration that being a professional engineer is something that you have to be proud of in your career as an engineer. I, for one, when I bring in somebody, I want them to appreciate being an engineer and also being an engineer who are registered as a professional engineer. So I'm quite sure Engineer Habibi Razak will agree with me on this one, So thank you very much. That's my answer.
Thank you so much, Prof. Shahir, for sharing your thoughts and perspective on this matter. It is quite interesting discussion this afternoon, but sorry to share that we are reaching out to the closing session. And then I think we already covered all of our agenda in this discussion about innovation in higher education to prepare engineers in the VUCA world. Thanks again to all the panelists, Prof. Selo, Prof. Shahir, Ibu Dr. Eka, and Pak Habibi for sharing with us your experiences, aspirations, and inspiring perspectives. Hope this will be starting point of opportunities in the future. We would like to thank as well to all the audiences for the participation. With that, we close this session and I return the floor back to Madam Master of Ceremony. Ibu Dian, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we close today's event, we would like to ask your permission to open up your camera. We will have a photo session and I will divide it into 5 sessions. Our team here will be taking photos from the first slide into the 5th slide. Okay, now let's begin to take photos from the first slide. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Next for the second slide, 1, 2, 3. Give your best smile for the third slide, 1, 2, 3. The fourth slide, 1, 2, 3. And for the last slide, please smile, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you for your participation. Well, the honorable ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your participation today. We hope that we will meet again in future collaboration with our university. We also like to express our gratitude to all panelists, our sponsors such as PT Wijaya Karya, Waskita, Perum Jasa Tirta II, Inti Beton, Bank Negara Indonesia, Bank Mandiri, Bank Syariah Indonesia, and also to all committee of Hari Pendidikan Tinggi Teknik 76. Thank you very much and see you.
Thank you, Engineer Habibi Razak. Thank you, Prof. Shahir. Thank you, Prof. Selo. Thank you, Mem Suryani. Thank you, MC. Thank you, Mem Yani. Thank you for all. Selamat Pendidikan Teknik Indonesia. Salam cinta dari ujung kandang. Salam untuk keluarga Malaysia. Salam Insinyur Indonesia.
Thank you, Pak Bayu Aryawan. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Yeah.